Hey everyone, and welcome back to Exam Edge for Community Medicine. Ever really stop to wonder what makes the water coming out of your tap actually safe to drink? Well, it's not magic, it's some really crucial public health chemistry. Today, we're going to break down two key tests you absolutely need to know for your exams, the orthotolidine versus the OTA test. So let's get right into it. And hey, if you're serious about acing community medicine, make sure you're subscribed. Every single day, we turn on the faucet without a second thought, just trusting that what comes out is safe. But what's the actual science that stands between us and a ton of nasty microbes?
You guessed it. It's pure chemistry in action. And it's a fundamental concept in public health. That is, you know it, an incredibly high-yield exam topic. So you're going to want to pay close attention.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can understand the solution, we have to understand the problem. And I like to call this the Chlorine Conundrum. We all know that chlorination is pretty much our go-to for disinfecting water. It's fantastic at killing off a whole bunch of nasty microorganisms. But here's the kicker. The goal isn't just to clean the water at the treatment plant. We need a certain amount of that chlorine to stay in the water to keep it safe on its long journey to your tap. And that's the real challenge. If you have too little chlorine, dangerous bugs can survive. But if you have too much, you run into problems with taste, odor, and even potentially harmful byproducts. So the million-dollar question is, how do we measure the amount of effective chlorine that's left? That's what we call residual chlorine. And that brings us to our very first tool in the public health toolkit, the simple, straightforward orthotolidine test, or as we all call it, the OT test. So the OT test is a classic colorimetric test. That's just a fancy word for a test that uses color to measure something. Its main job is to figure out the total residual chlorine. Now, this includes both free chlorine, which is the active, powerful germ killer, and combined chlorine, which is, well, it's a bit less effective. The OT test just measures them both, all lumped together.
The procedure itself is beautifully simple, really. You take a water sample, you add a little bit of this orthotolidine reagent, and you just watch for a color change. A yellow color pops up, and the deeper and darker that yellow is, the more chlorine is in there. Then you just compare that color to a chart to get your concentration. So the basic reaction you need to remember is this. Orthotolidine meets chlorine and bam, you get a yellow color. Simple, right? Well, maybe not so fast. And this is where our story gets a little more complicated. You see, the simple OT test has a major flaw. It's a classic case of mistaken identity. Think about it like this. What if the yellow color we're seeing isn't only from the chlorine? What if there are other things on the water that are basically pretending to be chlorine and fooling our test? And here they are, the main culprits. It turns out that other stuff, like iron, manganese, and nitrates, can often be found in water. And the big problem is they also react with that orthotolidine reagent. This is where things get really dangerous. These interfering substances create their own yellow color, which gets added to the color from the actual chlorine. And what do you get? A false positive. The test could tell you the chlorine level is perfectly safe when in reality, it could be dangerously low. That's a massive public health risk.
So, how do we solve this problem of mistaken identity? Well, allow me to introduce the clever upgrade, the Orthotolidine Arsenite Test, or OTA. Think of this as the super detective that can spot the imposters.
Okay, so here's the absolute genius of the OTA test. It adds one single crucial step. We take a water sample, but before adding the orthotolidine, we add some sodium arsenite. This arsenite acts like a cloaking device for the chlorine. It just completely neutralizes it, makes it invisible to the test. So now when we add the orthotolidine reagent, the only things left that can possibly create that yellow color are those pesky interfering substances.
And this leads us to a really simple, elegant solution. We perform both tests. The first one, the good old OT test, gives us a number for chlorine plus the interference. The second test, our new friend the OTA, gives us a number for the interference only. You just subtract that second result from the first, and you're left with the true residual chlorine level. Problem solved.
So, all this chemistry is cool, but why does it really matter out there in the real world? Let's connect this knowledge directly to its application in community medicine. This all becomes absolutely critical when you look at the entire journey water takes, from the plant all the way to the tap. After processes like filtration, which you can see in diagrams just like this one, we add chlorine. But that chlorine's job isn't over. It has to stay active in the pipes all the way to someone's home. And that's why an accurate test like the OTA is so vital. It ensures that protective shield of chlorine is actually there.
Just imagine this scenario. You're investigating a diarrheal outbreak in a rural village. Your first suspicion is, of course, the water supply. A simple OT test might show that the chlorine is adequate, but a more thorough OTA test could reveal that interfering substances are totally masking a dangerously low true chlorine level. It's the exact same principle for monitoring public swimming pools to prevent the spread of nasty infections.
And just so you know, we've distilled all of this information straight from the gold standard textbooks you're already studying, like Parks and the IAPSM textbook of community medicine. This is the core, exam-ready information you absolutely have to know.
Okay, let's do a super quick recap to make sure this sticks. The simple OT test, it gives you the reading for the total residual chlorine, but it can get fooled by imposters. The OTA test, that's our detective. It helps you find the true chlorine level by first measuring and then subtracting the effect of those imposters. Now it's your turn to test your knowledge. What are those common interfering substances we mentioned that can cause a false positive in the OT test? I want to see your answers down in the comments below. Let's see who was paying attention. If this explainer really helped things click for you, do me a favor and help out your fellow students by smashing that like button and sharing this with your batchmates. Let's make sure everyone nails this topic.
And of course, make sure you are subscribed to Exam Edge for more breakdowns of these high-yield community medicine topics. Thanks so much for studying with me today, and I will see you in the next one.